What's going on, guys? It's Kyle again with DTOM Knives and Gear, and today we are going to be doing the full review of this guy. This is the CJRB Kicker. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay, today we're going to be looking at the CJRB Kicker. Now, you look at this knife and automatically you see something that is kind of different. What is different? This right here, this is called the Recoil-Lock from Artisan Cutlery or CJRB. You basically, it's the same company there. And if you are a member of the channel or a subscriber, you know that CJRB is definitely one of my favorite budget brands. There has been quite a few. The budget knife market has just exploded over the last couple of years, where you can get some really nice knives for a very budget price, and CJRB is one of the best when it comes to that. There are others, but I love CJRB. Now, one of the reasons that I love them is because I think they offer a lot of value, and they're kind of innovative. This lock, the Recoil-Lock, makes this knife very different and interesting, and we're going to talk about that. But first, what is this knife? The Kicker. Well, it is a G10 constructed with steel liners, D2 steel, and just a nice, like clip point blade, flat grind, just a very nice EDC blade. Now, it's not the smallest thing in the world, and it is not the biggest thing in the world. I consider this to be a full-size knife that I think that most people are going to enjoy, unless you're the minimalist type. This one has an overall length of 8¼ inches with a blade length of 3½ inches. It has about a 1-inch width with about 125,000 stock thickness, and it weighs around 4.5 ounces. So that's pretty good. I think that's a good size knife. I think it has a profile of being a great EDC companion. As far as it being D2 steel, it is a budget blade. Some of us are kind of getting tired of D2. I am not one of those. I really like D2 for a budget steel, but you have a lot of companies out there that's, testing the waters with other steels, 14C28N, things like that, which I'm also excited about, but it's not something that would take me away from the CJRB, which they offer different steels, but most of their budget brands or budget knives come with D2, and I'm perfectly okay with that, especially for the price. This is about a $40 knife, and for what you're getting is, I think, fine. I think it's a perfectly good price. Now, it is a flipper, and it has the Recoil-Lock. What is the Recoil-Lock? Well, it kind of functions like an axis lock on a Benchmade. Now, obviously, the axis lock is right here where you can press the Omega spring, and it comes back down, just like that. Very popular, very fidgety, and people really like it. That's why Benchmades and the Axis Lock have been very popular. This one is the Benchmade Super Freak, which is one of my favorite Benchmades. But as you can see, it operates a little bit different. It does operate on an Omega spring, but it's just a little bit different. This is not my knife. This was sent to the channel by the Apex Pass Around group, led by Blade Banter. I am so very thankful to be a part of this group. I've been watching the guys that have been a part of the Apex Pass Around group for a while, and the fact that they have allowed me to join warms my heart and makes me so excited. And that's where this knife come from, is the Apex Pass Around group. So thank you guys for that. The lock here, as you can see, you have kind of a pillar style jimping on the side. You have jimping on the rear or top, and then also on the side there. So it allows you to close the knife in a few different ways. You can pinch it and bring it down kind of like an axis lock. You can push it from the top, which is actually my preferred way, press this down and close it that way. And I believe, you can just, instead of just use your thumb and only press it down from one side. So in that sense, it's very nice to be able to have have the options to be able to disengage the lock however you feel more comfortable, whether it's that pinch grip or just the finger and you whipping it back that way. Very, very nice. It does lock up really solid. I haven't had to adjust this pivot or anything like that. It is and did come a little off center, not bad. Might could adjust that out, but it's just favoring the show side just a hair. Not really an issue. It's not rubbing or anything. And like I said, you probably could adjust that. But with it being like that, there's still no blade play. So that's very, very nice. As you can see, the flipping action works, and it works fine. It is a little bit lazier than what I typically like, as far as, because you don't really have a detent. You're using that Omega spring, kind of the tension there, and so it's a little bit different than a flipper that has a detent, and it just feels a little mushy, weak to me. But that really is kind of normal, and it doesn't really affect the knife. It still fires out like it's supposed to. You can tell this flipper tab just a little bit different than what you're used to. So this is kind of a light switch. See how I can fail it there, but you really have to try. Light switch kind of going down. You still can do the push button, which I always prefer to do the push button if I can help it, or if I can do it on a knife, because it just makes it fire out there just a little bit better, in my opinion. One thing I want you to kind of see is whenever you do close this knife, you see how it doesn't fall shut if you don't keep that thing locked, and even if you do, it doesn't. It has this little bit of an area where it doesn't go past that spring tension. So sometimes when I was closing this knife, that would happen. So when you're closing the knife, you really just have to whip it in and kind of get your timing down to be able to get it closed. Not a huge deal, but it is different than the Axis lock, really, because like I can do it with the Axis lock, but it's really just a little bit more intuitive to get this thing. I don't know. It's a little bit different. This is all I'm going to say. I can't really put my words, I guess, into this, but I find myself with the Axis lock, that never hardly happening. And with this lock, it does whenever I don't get that whip in there to close the knife. But it's something definitely to look out for, but I don't think it really should be a factor of not purchasing this knife, because it does make for a very fidgety knife. And for us knife guys, we like to fidget, and so it's a very fidgety lock. I really have enjoyed carrying it. Now, it does have regular G10 handles with steel liners, and the G10 is done very well. Artisan and CJRB does a great job. I like the little pop of color there with that kind of a brass-looking pivot collar. They come in quite a few different colors, just like almost all other CJRB knives. And the main thing that I really like about this knife in particular is the way that it carries. You know, it's wide, but it's not too wide. They do a pretty good job with their pocket clip. The only thing that bugs me about their pocket clips is they don't use, if I can get it to focus, they use these pretty big button head screws. So when it's a deep carry pocket clip, doesn't go all the way to the top, but it sits deep enough. But with those big screws, sometimes your pants doesn't want to go all the way down to the butt of the pocket clip. So that's a thing. But otherwise, I mean, it really carried well. For my purposes, I carry a lot of bigger and heavier knives, so I'm a little bit biased and may not be the best judge for something that carries really, really, well as far as a lighter knife. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons on this bad boy. So like I said, it's about 8 1/4 inches overall. There it is against your Spyderco PM2. Pretty similar in size. Here it is against my all-time favorite budget knife, the CJRB Felspar. Felspar, I think, is just a tad bit smaller than the kicker here. This one, of course, is a thumb stud deployment, which works absolutely wonderfully, and a liner lock versus the Recoil-Lock. Now, the Recoil-Lock is definitely more fidgety than the Felspar, but it's still one of my favorite knives of all time as far as in this price range. Let's see, another one that we have here, which we will be doing. This is the CJRB Crag that also has the Recoil-Lock. I got this one in, like a day or so after. Of from the Apex Pass Around group as well. So we're doing the full review of this, and we'll probably just do a comparison between these two knives next instead of doing a full review of the Krag because they are so similar. However, I will go ahead and tell you now that the Recoil-Lock and action on the Krag feels just a little bit better. Now that could be due to the wider blade, and so it actually does whip a lot better because of the heavier blade. So look for, or just stay tuned for that. We will do a direct comparison of these two, but just so you can see the Krag, it might be just a little bit longer. They're pretty daggone close to the same size. A little bit different blade shape, a little bit wider of a blade. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this as well, so stay tuned for that. Now, something that a lot of people that I've talked to about this knife, this is, a lot of people are probably going to kill me. This knife is hands down, it's fun and the lock is great. It is not to the, of course, quality of something like this, which is the Andrew Demko 8020 with the Shark Lock. But I wanted to kind of show you, if you, obviously, this is a much more expensive knife, much more high quality. But if you like the Shark Lock, do you see how I disengage that and come down? It is the same kind of motions with the Andrew Demko 8020. So I'm just pushing back on this lock and whip it down. Now, obviously, this works so much better than the Recoil-Lock, but it's the same kind of motion that we use to disengage it and to come back down. So if you like that, and if you've seen the 8020 and you like the fact that you can just use your finger there to bring this back and close it, then this is a good option, especially if you are not sure. Go ahead and get this, try it out, and see if it's going to work. Now, like I said, actually, everything is different, but it's just the motion. See if you can get used to that. I just had to throw that out there because it reminded me of it. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, why in the world would you put the 8020 in with a review of the CJRB kicker? But yeah, I did because it's my channel. I can do it. So anyways, this thing, as far as the blade shape, the grind, it's about 20 thousandths behind the edge. So it cut really well. It's a, saber grind goes up about 70% or so, the length or the width of the blade. So did very, very well. They did a good job with a sharpening choil here. The EDC task that I did, it worked amazingly. It has a good enough point with a clip point blade here to do some piercing task. A lot of, you got just a slight amount of belly. The ergonomics are just really good. Now, some people are concerned with your thumb coming back, and as you can see, it does disengage the lock, because it does not take much at all to disengage that. So that could be a problem. I didn't find that happening to me when I was doing my cuts, even if I was doing hard cuts. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but just keep that in mind that it could happen. It just is a thing. Now, it doesn't have a finger control, but it does have a place here that I was able to kind of choke up on the knife, which I really appreciate. It's probably not the best thing in the world, but I was able to get one knuckle in there and get behind the knife. So I really like that. And then, like I said, high saber grip, you're not going to really be touching this. It's got this little swoop up here that was really comfortable to get behind the knife. So ergonomically, this thing really does a lot for me. The way that it swells up a little bit back here, doesn't have really any finger grooves, just kind of locks you in to this grip. Hammer and saber grip are just really, really comfortable. And so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. For you guys who like a lanyard hole, it does have one. Now, I kind of wish, because the lanyard hole's off to the side, I kind of wish they'd have moved this pocket clip up here. I believe they could have moved those holes. This is left hand, right hand tip up only. But actually, I bet they could have moved these holes up here and moved this pocket clip to the very butt of the knife, which I think would have been pretty good. A lot of people especially my buddy Jake over at Bearded Gear. He has a really hard time seeing pocket clips like this that are loop over deep carry pocket clips that don't go all the way to the butt of the knife. And if you're going to have a deep carry pocket clip, then I agree with him. I'm not one that has to have a deep carry pocket clip on my knives. It's just not a thing that I look for, or just have to have, rather. It's nice sometimes on some knives, but that's something that I don't usually have to have. But I totally agree with him, if you're going to have a loop over deep carry pocket clip, to have it go to the butt of the knife. And I think this would have been a good opportunity for them to just kind of move it over. I don't think it would have hurt the carry profile of this thing at all. So yeah, that's a thing. CJRB, maybe they'll do that in the future, because I can already tell, you can see with the Krag, that's kind of what they did. So, you know, we're going to be doing a full comparison, but they did a much better job on the Krag deep carry pocket clip position, rather, than they did on the Kicker. But the Kicker is a great knife. I do believe a lot of people will enjoy this knife. I did. I really enjoyed carrying it. I really appreciate the Apex Pass Around group for giving me the opportunity to check this out, and the Krag, and a lot of other knives, because otherwise I wouldn't have the content that we've been having with without the Apex Pass Around group and wonderful people like Stud Fishing, who sent me that huge unboxing. If you haven't seen the unboxing of the knives that he sent me, definitely go check that out, because it is epic. So anyways, guys, that's about it. I love this knife. I think it's a great price. I think people are going to like it, especially because it has this Recoil-Lock. It is something different to purchase and carry, and for the price, it's definitely worth it to go ahead, get, and try out. So stay safe, guys, in this crazy world that we are living in, and we will see you in the next one.